Everybody, my name is Kim, and I'm here today to talk to you about the threat that is hiding in your food. How many of you would be surprised to know that, in my audience analysis, 90% of you said you were concerned with what was in your food, while 10% remained undecided. How many of you would be surprised to know that the food companies are using genetically modified organisms in the food that they sell to you? PRN Newswire reports that according to a 2006 Pew Initiative on Food and Biotechnology study, 58% of Americans don't know that their food is being genetically altered. 30% of you don't even know what a GMO is. I'm here to tell you today what it is. A GMO has been, or a genetically modified organism, has been modified and had its DNA changed in some way, usually through genetic engineering, which means a scientist has taken DNA from one organism and is sticking it into another organism. And usually the way that they do this is through the transmission of a virus. They get the virus to infect the organism and inject foreign DNA into it. I've done extensive study on this topic and reviewed many scientific studies and websites evaluating the information available on GMOs. I became personally concerned about what was going on with my food and water several years ago when I started suffering issues with my thyroid. That's when I started to learn about GMOs, genetically modified organisms. I have no problem with someone else wanting to consume a GMO, but I do have a serious problem when you take away my choice to, or not to. When GMOs are not labeled correctly, my choice, my right to choose is taken away. Guys, I apologize. How many of you would be surprised to know that food companies don't have to label that you're eating a GMO? When GMOs are not labeled correctly, my right to choose is taken away. On their website, the Genetic Literacy Project lists nearly 36 countries that have already banned the cultivation of GMO crops. I am not asking for a permanent ban, but I feel it is important that we stop allowing the use of these genetically engineered food sources until they have been studied thoroughly and properly. Today, I will focus on the GMOs that you are currently being exposed to, the threat that they pose to our environment and our health, and why they should be banned until they are understood properly. Let's start by looking at the hidden GMOs in our food. GMOs are currently being used in our food supply, more are being introduced daily, and the companies that use them don't have to inform you that they are being used. The Center for Food Safety reports on their website that an estimated 75% of the food in your supermarket contains a GMO. Anything with sugar on it, if it doesn't say pure cane, is made from sugar beets, and that's one of the top 5 GMO crops. Corn, alfalfa, cotton, sugar beets. I lost my PowerPoint. The USDA reports that in 1996, farmers began cultivating GE crops, and in just 20 years, GMOs account for between 70 to 90% of the corn, soybeans, alfalfa, and sugar beets found in processed food today. On November 19, 2015, Congress approved the use of GMO salmon to be sold without labeling. Now, they stopped that, luckily, because the FDA stepped in and said we need further research, but if that happens, that'll be the first approved meat source that we will begin being sold, and we won't know it's being sold to us. These are only a few examples of GMOs that are allowed to be sold and used in food production without informing the public. And the negative effects of these GMOs are just starting to surface. These genetically engineered products are beginning to have negative effects on our environment and our health. We're now facing a superweed epidemic, and the use of stronger pesticides and increased tilling of pesticide-saturated soil is a direct result from GMO crops. In a 2016 article from the Genetic Literacy Project, Where Are GMOs Grown and Banned, states that Since the first superweed was found in a crop of soybeans in 2000, the problem has spread with 10 resistant species in at least 22 states, infesting millions of acres, predominantly of soybeans, cotton, and corn. The article also quotes Andrew Walker III, the president of the Arkansas Association of Conservative Districts, as saying that it is the single largest threat to production agriculture that we have ever seen. A few of you mentioned that you didn't worry about your food because you ate organic and that it was healthy. How would you feel if I told you that organic farmers are dealing with GMO contamination? Originally, organically grown food requires the use of no pesticides, man-made fertilizers, and absolutely no GMOs. And now organic farmers that have farms next to GMO farms, they're getting pollen and cross-contamination of their organically grown products. Darcy Rakestraw of Food and Water Watch, a consumer advocacy group, in cooperation with the Organic Farmers Agency for Relationship Marketing, surveyed organic farmers in 17 states asking them about GMO contamination. 5 out of 6 of the organic farmers surveyed are concerned about GMO contamination, and 1 in 3 have already dealt with it. In addition to harming the environment, GMOs in our diet pose a serious risk to our health and the health of your children. In a website, The Truth About Your Natural Cereal, Rodale's Organic Life states that genetically engineered ingredients have infiltrated our food system, even though they've never been tested for long-term impact on human health. Some scientists have linked GMOs in food to a drastic spike in food allergies, accelerated aging, infertility, and digestive problems. There's a lot of studies that link it to low sperm counts. Another study from the Journal of Organic Systems shows a specific correlation between GMOs and 22 diseases, such as liver failure, thyroid disease, urinary and bladder cancers, hypertension, stroke, and diabetes, just to name a few. How about the studies that scientists say that GMOs are safe and pose no added health risk? There are claims circulating that scientists agree on the safety of GMOs. However, there is no agreement or no policy that supports these claims. An article on the consumer advocacy group Food and Water Watch website entitled "The So-Called Scientific Consensus: Why the GMO Debate is Not Over" explains that scientists, in fact, do not agree that GMOs are safe. The article lists several scientific study groups like BioFortified and the American Society of Plant Biologists that are supported by biotech companies like Monsanto. Addressing this issue in 2013, the European Network of Scientists for Social and Environmental Responsibility issued this statement. As scientists, physicians, academics, and experts from disciplines relevant to the scientific, legal, social, and safety assessment aspects of genetically modified organisms, GMOs, we strongly reject that GM seed developers and some scientists, commentators, and journalists that there is a scientific consensus of GMO safety, and the debate on this topic is over. What they're saying is that we do not agree with you. These things have not been proven safe. As of January 20, 2015, the website lists 313 individuals and their qualifications that have signed this statement. What I have shared with you today does not begin to touch on the evidence that GMOs are hazardous and why they need to be researched properly and thoroughly before their use and cultivation is allowed to continue. I have given you a brief review of GMOs, and I hope that I have raised your awareness of the ones that you are already consuming and the possible dangers associated with them. In conclusion, GMOs are being used without our full knowledge and consent. They pose a serious risk to our health and environment, and although some studies report that they are safe, evidence is piling up to refute that. Therefore, they need to be studied thoroughly and properly before the use of them is allowed to continue. I have put together a flyer for you with suggestions on what you can do to help stop the threat of the spread of GMOs. If you are as concerned as I am about this matter, I strongly urge you to become a part of the anti-GMO movement, so that together we can stand to protect our health, the health of our children, and the health of our planet. Thank you.